cast your minds back to before the start of the 25 season, everything regarding Ferrari was of a positive nature, from the debut of Lewis Hamilton's factory visit to his first taste of a Ferrari car through the SF23, and of course the insane levels of auto farming done with the photo shoots. And of course anticipation for the SF25, Ferrari's final attempt for greatness in this ground effect era, was at an all-time high, considering the fact of them changing the front suspension layout, a dramatic philosophy change for a final year. So nothing could go wrong, could it? I mean, everything is in place, all-star driver lineup, final year of the regulations, the auto farming. Everything has to lead to world championships, right? Fast forward to the start of the season and the car will not run in its optimum working window. This then involves the issues of plank wear, subsequently followed by the introduction of lico, as well as a multitude of other issues. And to round it all off, we had the embarrassment of the Hungarian Grand Prix to round up the first half of the season. So what exactly has gone wrong for Ferrari in 2025? Well, it can all be traced back to the root cause, which is the decision they made in the winter period in 2024 to change the front suspension layout for the SF25. This change was heralded as the coming of a new dawn for Ferrari, where it would unlock the ultimate performance from their Ferrari SF25. And that dream quickly turned into a living nightmare. And it's all to do with the revisions made to the front suspension layout for 2025. They have a correlation issue essentially, and it's an unfortunate one for them. What they found is the real world data and the way the car operates is not very much in line with how it was supposed to be from the data gathered in the virtual world through the wind tunnel and CFD and all of the other methods through which they gather the data. Now essentially what is happening here is the plank is coming into contact with the floor in specific areas they didn't foresee, and even more importantly than that, with particular levels of kind of force and load applied on these areas. And this reared its ugly head last time out at the Hungarian Grand Prix, particularly in that final stint. Now, of course, this is an issue which they've tried to partially remedy with an updated rear suspension, but as we know, it really hasn't been able to achieve that, and so they have to live with this issue. And to live with this issue, as we all know, they have to do a plethora, a multitude of various things, and they can choose to do a specific one for one weekend or for a different avenue for the next weekend. So for example, one weekend it could be all to do with lico, the next weekend it could be engine settings at the end of the straights, and it could be a mixture between everything. So a mixture of everything, and this is where the SF25 suffers. And of course, this deep into the season with only half of the races left, it really doesn't warrant a front suspension change of this magnitude. They thought they could fix it with the rear suspension, but that's not the case. And of course, with 26 on the horizon, just wrap it up and forget it completely. Now, as to regards to Hungary, plankwear reared its ugly head as I suspected before it's been confirmed by Auto Racer in their article. Essentially, it was plankwear Ferrari were dealing with, hence the increase in tyre pressures, as well as the other instructions given to Charles Leclerc, such as engine mode changes from lap 9 onwards, driver handling changes in terms of how he was driving particular corners to essentially stay off the curbs in the quickest corner on the Budapest circuit. And these are the issues that we have been discussing for this entire season. Now, with Hungary and Budapest in particular, Ferrari had a plan in place to be able to hold at least one McLaren at bay. Not both, because of course for that they would have had to have had second driver of Lewis Hamilton in play with regards to being in the top 4. That was never the case after a horrifying qualifying for him yet again. Now, an interesting piece of information gathered by Autoracer is it has been a general practice that all the teams at various stages in this ground effect era since 2022 up until this point, they've always increased tyre pressures by 1.5 psi, essentially to improve the issue of palanque wear across the board. So this is a universal thing all of the teams have been doing. But of course, this brings about a huge number of issues, negative aspects that are placed on all of the cars when they do this. This is from a downforce in grip level, because of course raising the car through the increase of PSI pressures means you're not generating the downforce that you could be. Therefore, the contact patch of the front tires is that much smaller. And as a result, the grip is less than optimal for the cars. So it is very much a case of you're playing around with a whole bunch of settings with your cars, from driving styles, tire pressures, engine modes, and you're trying to find the best optimum avenue through which to finish the race within the means of having a legal car while still being relatively competitive. Unfortunately, Ferrari didn't manage to do that in Hungary, and we saw what unfolded there. So much so that in fact they were over a second slower than their predicted calculations, even after increasing the tyre pressures in that final stint. So yeah, it seems even with their knowledge gathered throughout this ground effect era, they still had a major miscalculation in terms of what was going to happen with the car with that increase. And so I think that is very much indicative of just how kind of vitally important and very much sensitive this SF25 is, with being in its optimum working window. Being out of that window by a narrow margin has dire consequences, as we saw. So yeah, that is the story of 2025. It's something I believe to have been the case for many months now, but we've got a little bit of a confirmation from that. Yeah, and that's where I'm going to wrap up with this video. I hope everyone has enjoyed it. If you have, do leave a like on the video. If you're new here on F1 Unraveled, hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications for all future content. Alright, enjoy your week, and I'll catch you all across the final week before we go racing again. See you shortly.